talk Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker is signed up to fight Chimaev. And Chimaev, one of the three great media darlings in the history of our sport. Chimaev, who defeated Kamaru Usman and was named number one contender. Chimaev, who was offered the world title fight. Well, I'm going back to the turn of the year, guys. But Chimaev was offered to go to Canada and take on Sean Strickland for the belt, of which would be a competitive match between two training partners who had felt each other a number of times in the gym. Chimaev had a broken hand. Insert DDP, because it wasn't the point anyway. The point was to get that title done so somebody could draw into 300 opposite Izzy Adesanya. Like, none of those players mattered. They were all interchangeable mediocrities. Just give me one of them so I can get Izzy, my big star, to the main event of 300. And that is just not where the division is anymore. It turned out to be awesome. DDP, for example, turned out to be awesome. Sean Strickland turned out to be compelling. Sean Strickland, the champion, was really just kind of a go along, get along, aw shucks, little boy with a dream come true. When they took that belt from Sean, he completely changed. I mean, he wanted that thing back. He wants that thing back way more than he ever wanted it initially, or he wanted to hold on to it. And I couldn't tell you why. I've never really seen anything quite like this, but that motivation and that twinkle in the eye and that severity in the tone and his performance, the way he's going to compete, he wants that belt back more than he's ever wanted anything in sport. So what a difference we have. All of a sudden, our biggest star and our biggest draw, well, we've got some other guys that are pretty big stars, and then we got other guys that are pretty big draws. So let's look at Robert Whittaker. What is he going to do? It has always been difficult to get Whittaker to the ring. I realize people don't like to tell a story that way, Whittaker, but it is. It's hard to get him there. This was Whittaker's idea, and you want to know why Whittaker had the idea? And I'm talking about taking on Chimaev for 5 rounds. One thing Chimaev's never done before. We haven't seen him in championship rounds, and there are guys that have questioned his conditioning. I am not one of those guys. I feel as though you've seen fights, see Kamaru Usman, see Gilbert Burns, for example, where Chimaev has put everything into it and he comes out exhausted. I expect a guy to put everything into it and to come out exhausted. I don't think a guy has conditioning issues when he does that. I lose respect for other guys that don't come out like that, but that's another topic for another day. Whittaker wants to do the fight, and he said, and I quote, "If I beat Chimaev, there will be no denying that I should fight next for the championship." Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. Go take out Chimaev was certainly in the conversation, sure. But it doesn't look as though Chimaev is the guy. He pulled out of his last fight, just for example. It was actually against Robert Whittaker. That's not a wonderful thing. We're hearing of travel problems. Not a wonderful thing. It would seem that we're between Whittaker and Sean Strickland. But that's not who Whittaker pulled out. I mentioned that. I mentioned that to Daniel Cormier. And Daniel said, Chael, here's what you're getting wrong. Sean Strickland, on his way back, from the time losing the belt, on his way back, his greatest win is against Paulo Costa. That's the same guy that Robert Whittaker beat. So even if Whittaker and Sean don't go head to head, if they go through common opponents, it's the next best thing. And now, if you're gonna see me Paulo Costa, and I can match your Paulo Costa and raise you a Khamzat Chimaev, then Whittaker wins. And Whittaker should be the one to fight for the belt. I don't know that I fully agree with that. However, I get biased when it comes to Sean, for one. And two, I can only imagine, right? All right, I can only break this down for an interpretation with what I know now. I can't imagine what happens after a build-up to Whittaker and Chimaev and what would happen after that contest. And you don't know anything until you know that. So, I respect the heck out of Whittaker for doing it. Daniel Cormier thinks that Whittaker's math is right. Daniel Cormier thinks that if Whittaker, that it won't matter who's better or who could win between Sean and Whittaker head to head. If your biggest argument is the victory over Paulo Costa and the other guys got the same thing, right? I know I'm repeating myself, but I just want you to hear the logic because I want to see your comments on this. I want to know if you see it the same way. And you may not today. I'm not asking you, though, today. I'm not asking you today. You got to pick one, get the right one between Sean and Whittaker. I think you do give that to Sean. Daniel's argument is that if Whittaker gets one more win with Sean not doing anything, that it goes right to Whittaker. But if Whittaker was to win, you got to understand you're going into a rematch. There hasn't ever been a big push to see Whittaker versus DDP Part 2. There hasn't ever been a big push to see Whittaker versus Adesanya Part 3. That doesn't mean those things can't change. But I would like your opinion. Do you see it the way Daniel sees it? Is Whittaker versus Chimaev actually the number one contenders match, or is Sean Strickland the number one contender, and we're just waiting for the outcome of the bout in Perth to find out who he's going to get matched against?